back. It is the Vegas Take Sharp and Shapiro, joined by in-studio guest Chris Wynn. And we're having a little fun, and we're going to get to UNLV basketball. Coming up here at the bottom of the hour, Charlene Carabio. She is the singer, very beautiful, very talented, of the show Sexy at Westgate. And we'll be giving away a pair of tickets to that show as well, so stay tuned for that. So we talk a lot of UNLV basketball on this show. We all want the same, at least I'd hope we all want. We all want UNLV to succeed. Marvin Menzies, yeah, I think it's fair to say that this year kind of on the hot seat a little bit. And he made some very interesting remarks. I don't know if you'd call them controversial remarks, but he was at practice the day before the San Diego State game, and he said he got a tirade of racial epithets. Do you remember that? We talked about it on Friday. And then Mark Anderson, who I respect very much, who does a great job at the Review-Journal, did a follow-up on that and asked him about it. He didn't give any specifics. He just said that it happened 3 years ago, didn't give any details, and said it's basically a moot point now. Well, why would you bring it up then? Why would you play the race card, and why would you bring up something like that? And look, maybe he got an email. Maybe somebody said something to him. Why would you bring that up now? And you made it like it happened on social media. I haven't seen anything like that on social media at all when it comes to UNLV basketball, someone saying something racially insensitive. That is offensive. And he got booed at the San Diego State game. And he was asked about that after the game, and he said he didn't really see it. He didn't hear it. And he said, look, fans are passionate. That's the answer he gave. But yes, folks, he got booed. And I think a big part of that was the comments he made. Really, really not smart to say something like that, regardless of whether he got an email or something happened. So I got some information, Chris. Well, let's start with that first, Chris, because, Mark Anderson follows up on it. A couple other people I've talked to were trying to follow up on it. I reached out to Tina Kunzer-Murphy, who has always been very nice in getting back to me right away, and she did, and she said she really couldn't comment on it. And Francois, no comment on it either. I just think the whole situation was ridiculous last week, and he should have never said that.
Well, the way I approach it is I thought it was just odd, right? My first reaction as I listened to those comments that he made when Mike Ramallah from the Las Vegas Sun asked him the question in regards to the rumors with Rick Pitino and with Marvin Menzies' job, he went into, the basically saying how it's ridiculous and, this he can't believe this is even a story because it's a non-story and how, he's close to Rick Pitino. And look, we all understand, we know the situation in regards to Marvin Menzies and how close he is with Rick Pitino, and that they are close friends. My take on it is this, though. I mean, you bring up the racial epithets, and absolutely, could he have gotten emails or other means of racially charged responses in some other way? There's no doubt he could have. There's no. I'm not calling him a liar. I'm not saying he's not a liar. I'm just. But the issue for me, and I think for a lot of people out there, and for a lot of UNLV faithful out there, Brian, is that he used the word tirade twice. Okay, when describing the racial stuff that he had been subjected to. And what that suggests to a lot of people is that there's basically a severe, and I said this on Facebook earlier today, I said it makes it seem as if there's a severe blast of racism and hate that's coming from the UNLV faithful back when he was hired in 2016, which I, as a member of the media, had covered that hiring and the firing of Dave Rice closer than anybody, as close as anybody in this town. And I was not aware of one iota of any type of racial animus or anything that went, there was never any discussion of any Rogue fans, even one or two Rogue fans that came into it and said, I can't believe they're hiring Marvin Menzies because he's black or because of his heritage. I didn't hear any of that. No. So that's why it was such a lot of people were just taken aback when he brought that comment into the context of a question where it was brought up that his friend could possibly be in the mix for the UNLV coaching job.
And this was the day before the San Diego State game. Of course, San Diego State played on Saturday against UNLV, and San Diego State's top point guard, or starting point guard, I should say, Hemsley, was hurt, not 100% throughout the entire game. He didn't play much in the second half, didn't score any points. San Diego State was in control for most of the game. Then UNLV made a push back because Noah Rabatha made 5 threes in a row, I think it was. And that's how you get back in a ball game. You get a guy that goes 5 for 5, I believe, in the second half. And then down the stretch in that game, particularly in the last minute or so, I thought that the personnel on the floor was not correct. Blair, the tomboy, probably should have been out there, even though he didn't have a good offensive game. You want that guy out there to score with down one with 15 seconds to go. Instead, it was Blair, a guy that doesn't play a lot of minutes, that took the last shot. I don't know if the personnel was right. And then the possession before that, it was the second to last possession. Noah Robotham and Amari Hardy had some miscommunication. At least that's what Robotham said. He called it miscommunication. Hardy didn't even know what play they were running. Now, whose responsibility is that? Okay, that is a fact. That is what. And Robotham said, look, it's on me. I should have told them what play. How do you come out of a timeout there and not know what play you are running? And I don't want to kill Amari Hardy, even though as a player, you're not a freshman, you're a sophomore, you're a starting two guard. You need to know what play you're running. I have to say that's also on the coaching staff. You have to communicate. I'm not saying they didn't communicate properly, but how does the player that is a huge part of that play not know what play you're running with 12 or 15 seconds left to go when you're down one? It makes absolutely no sense to me. So coaching down the stretch, suspect. I give UNLV credit for coming back, but they still lost the game. They still lost the game. And they're 9-6 in arguably one of the worst, not arguably, certainly one of the worst conferences in the country. Arguably the worst. They're right there with the Ivy League. So where am I getting with all this? Where's the team improving? Everyone says, well, they won 9 games. You know, Dave Rice was 10-8 in the Mountain West in year 3. Completely different conference back then. 180 compared to what the conference is now. So that is a stupid argument, and I see that on social media all the time. It is ridiculous. Or some of the people drinking the Kool-Aid in the media that actually don't really want to admit where the program is at right now. There is a reason why 2,500 people show up to the Thomas & Mack for UNLV games, okay? There is a reason. And it's not just because the conference is bad, okay? It's because UNLV is not a good basketball team. It is a bad basketball product. So I did allude that I would give you guys a little bit of information on what I heard today. And yes, I do think my contacts are pretty good. I have pretty good sources, okay? Some people, a couple morons on social media last week said, oh, the contract's in place for Rick Pitino. It's $2.5 million over 5 years. Complete nimrods. And I named some of them last week on the air. Complete nimrods. I said that Rick Pitino was back in the conversation. I never said that Rick Pitino or his agent were contacted by UNLV. What I meant by back in the conversation were boosters. There were people that were trying to wheel and deal, trying to figure out how do we come up with the money to offer somebody like that a job here. And they couldn't do it. They could not do it. He was absolutely part of the conversation the last few weeks. Couldn't do it. They can't. That's why they can't hire a Thad Matta guy. So if they're in a situation where they can't really afford a big name coach, and they're in a situation where maybe it's a young up and coming coach, or keep Marvin Menzies for another year and maybe save $800,000, I wouldn't be surprised if they brought him back. And I heard from a really good source. That's what I was trying to say, from a really good source today that tells me that they are close to the athletic department and everything that's going on, that there is a more than reasonable chance that Marvin Menzies comes back as the coach next year. And that's where we're at right now.
Let me address that point, though, that you brought up in regards to Marvin Menzies talking about how, nobody's talked, right, to Rick Pitino or his agent. And Rick Pitino came out and basically supported that, right? And basically came out and declared that. That does not mean out there, folks, that there hasn't been discussion from other people who are involved in the process, whether it be boosters, whether it be financial influencers, people who have a say in regards to coaches being brought in here and what the program is going to do going forward. So, you can still say that Rick Pitino and his agent haven't been contacted by UNLV, but there is still, things going in motion here at UNLV that would want to some type of effort be made, I can put it that way, in regards to having Rick Pitino come here as the coach, right? So this whole thing, because you're basically what you're trying to defend yourself, saying that I wasn't one of the people that would say that Rick Pitino was contacted or that there was some kind of deal in place. That. No, I'm just pointing that out. That look, there are other things that could have happened, and that did happen. All right, which there's a reason why there's people in the media and fans and informed fans that are on social media that were talking about Rick Pitino being the coach here, right? And trying to, create the scenario where he would possibly come here. It wasn't just out of the blue. It wasn't just, we're dreaming and we're all hoping, okay? There were some wheels in motion that were other aspects other than Rick Pitino and his agent that were involved.
I don't know what you do if you are Francois. Well, look, I have some ideas of what you should do, but she is in a very, very difficult situation right now because they're financially they're in trouble. I think there's probably a lot of good young coaches out there. I mean, look what Justin Hudson's doing over there at Fresno. I mean, he was a longtime assistant coach. and Fresno picked him up, and he's doing a fantastic job. I think that's the kind of guy that you would go after right now. I think many of the coaches out there, they just won't take this job for the money that they would offer. Certainly not a Thad Matta or Rick Pitino or any of those guys, Steve Alford or Hoiberg or all these guys. No chance of landing a coach like this unless you got somebody that'll open up the checkbook. But the difficult thing, and the thing that I asked you fans right now, if you want to give us a call at 257-5396, is if Marvin Menzies comes back next year, are you going to buy tickets? Are you going to go to games? Now, I understand that, hopefully Houston comes back. That's not even a guarantee. He might not even come back to the team next year. He's going to do what's best for himself. But if this team comes back, they probably have top talent in the Mountain West Conference. They're right there with probably San Diego State next year. You can make the argument last year they had top talent, or second to best to Nevada. And look at how the season ended last year. Now, Renaud Botham is graduating. He is your starting point guard. I don't think Amari Hardy is a true point guard. He's more of a two guard. I know you have a couple recruits coming in that are pretty good, a couple freshmen that are going to be decent. And then you got Chris Clyburn that's leaving. And if Houston doesn't come back, and there's no guarantee he comes back, who's to say that this team is going to have success next year when you base it on year two with the talent that Marvin Menzies had? They lost their last 5 games of the Mountain West Conference. They were in the play-in game in the Mountain West Conference tournament, barely getting through. I believe it was Air Force, if I'm not mistaken. And then they lose in the quarterfinals. Who is to say that this season would be any different? What do you guys think about that? Let me give out the number, 257-5396, 702-257-5396, talking UNLV Hoops.
To be quite honest with you, Brian, you're doing a lot of speculating here, and as everybody is going to be in regards to next season, because we don't know, right? We don't know who he's going to recruit. We don't know what the makeup of the Mountain West is going to be next year, as far as who are the top 3 teams and who the favorites are going to be. How that all shakes out. So it's purely we're just we're kind of throwing darts at the wall and hoping they stick at that. But yes, I there's no question that when it comes to Marvin Menzies and whether or not he should be brought back, the judgment should be made, on the past 2 seasons, and this being the second season, because we've talked about it ad nauseum that we're not going to make a judgment in regards to year one, given the crazy circumstances that took place. And I've contended, man, I've said this to you off the air and to many other people and other media members. I think year 2 is as much of an indictment on Marvin Menzies as the coach here at UNLV than anything is, whether it's this season or how this year ends up being finished out, given the amount of talent that they had on this team last year, and they were still not able to even go make a run in the Mountain West tournament, much less have an opportunity to play in the postseason. Last year was an indictment, I think, of him as a coach here, and people want to say water under the bridge, whatever. No, I mean that clear. In my opinion, that gives you an indication, because you had. Top 20 player on this team in the country. You had guys who blended well, and the chemistry was solid with a lot of with a lot of the players here. Mm-hmm. And you should have been a better basketball team a year ago than they were. And so, to me, that's kind of the juice of it. But look, and you talked with a caller early on in the show where you're talking about making percentage possibilities of Marvin Menzies coming back or not. I think it still weighs on the back end of this regular season here, and what exactly they do in the Mountain West tournament. Yep. That's going to determine whether or not he ends up coming back or not.
All right, let's take the phone calls now, 257-5396, 702-257-5396. Let's go to Jose. Jose, thanks for calling in. How are you?
Good, Brian. Chris, how you guys doing?
Doing good. What's on your mind?
Listen, Brian, I follow you on social media a lot, and I know you've been a big proponent of Larry Eustace coming to UNLV. What's the issue with that? All these big names are falling out. Why isn't Larry still being considered?
That's a very good question, and I will address that by saying the information that I received is that our athletic director is not interested in Larry Eustace. That is what I have heard, and it's very unfortunate if that's true, and I do believe it to be true. My thoughts on Larry Eustace are this, and some people are going to say, well, Brian, you're biased. Well, the reason why I'm friends with the guy, the first reason why I admitted him, because I had a ton of respect for him as a basketball coach, and then I got a chance to get to know him, and he's a great guy. He's not perfect, but he's taken 5 different teams to 25 win seasons. He is a former National Coach of the Year. He is also the Mountain West Conference Coach of the Year 2 years ago when he really only had 2 good players on that team and only a 7-man roster. And yet there are still people out there that wouldn't want him. And I guess Francois is one of them, and I think she's making a huge mistake for a couple reasons. Number one, Larry would be affordable. Number two, I know a couple people that would be on Larry's staff that UNLV would absolutely and positively love. So, I mean, there's just so many different. I think he would turn this thing around, Jose. I have no question he would turn this thing around. But, look, if the athletic director is not interested in him, then there's really nothing you can do unless you get some sort of shoe deal in place and you get somebody to sign a 7-figure check to UNLV. Unfortunately, I just don't see it happening at this point.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that a Coach of the Year who's now had a little time to recharge his batteries, I think going with somebody experienced like that who can recruit to places that kids you don't normally, like you just said, Colorado State with a it didn't have any depth at all.
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer to me. It really is.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'll tell you, Jose, this too. There's other names that are still in the mix. Whether it's Thad Matta, whether it's Mike Miller. There's some other coaches, that I think there's pros and cons to.
Yeah,
and that you could make an argument and say, hey, maybe these guys would be a better fit than Marvin Menzies here at UNLV. And we'll see if the athletic director and the powers that be at UNLV actually take a stab at some of these guys.
Going to try to get Mike Miller on the show this week, but from what I've heard, Mike Miller is not even a part of the conversation. They're not even thinking about how. The good thing about hiring a guy like Mike Miller is you get Ryan Miller back here,
right,
who I think is a fantastic recruiter and a good coach. I thought Ryan Miller and Todd Simon probably arguably were the best recruiters that UNLV has had since the Tark days. I mean, Lon Kruger his guys recruited quality players that stuck here for 4 years, and obviously it worked out great. There's 2 different types of guys that you get guys that are not, top 50 guys, not McDonald's All-Americans, but guys like Wink Adams that, will stick here and get better year to year, like a Joel Anthony. And for Larry Eustace, bringing him up again, look at where he's coached. Southern Mississippi, Idaho. Yeah. He coached Colorado State. I know he had the Iowa State job, and he was doing well there, and then he had the drinking issues. Doesn't have those anymore. Do you know how much easier it is to recruit here than a Colorado State? It's like a 180. This is one of the easiest places to recruit on the West Coast. I think he would kill it here.
So Jose, you got Brian Shapiro on his Larry Eustace bandwagon. He's rolling strong right now, my friend.
No doubt. Hey Jose, I appreciate the call, my man. Thank you so much.
Great show, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Jose sounds a lot like a friend of ours, Jose-ish.
Yeah, a little bit. Appreciate the phone call, Jose. Thank you so much. So I know this is going to be exciting when we come back. This is going to be an interesting interview. You're going to be sitting next to the lovely, the beautiful, the talented Charlene Carabio. She is one of the stars and sings in the hit show Sexy at Westgate. So this is going to be very fun. We'll give away some tickets as well, so you're going to want to stay tuned for that. I always love to talk to these local performers. What is it like to do that every night? I guess you could say I'm a performer, aren't I? I'm a performer on the radio. Not the same as one of the performers that works at the orchids of Asia. Not that type of performer. But I guess you could say I'm a radio performer. I don't know. But this will be a lot of fun.
I know I don't want to see you up on stage at the Sexy Show. I know that.
No, definitely not. Well, Charlene's going to be coming up next, and she does a fantastic job. So take a quick break. We'll be back right after this, and we'll be back with Charlene. You're listening to The Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDWN.